Hello and welcome. My name is Sharon McCarthy. I'm glad you could be here today. My guess is you've clicked on this because you're curious as to what is a parent university. Well, the good news is when you spend the next half hour here with me, you will not only learn what a parent university is, but why it's important to create one for your district or bring one into your district, and most importantly, how to do it. What are the components based on how much time and content. But what we'll begin with is what is a parent university. So today specifically our goals are the what, the why, the how of a parent university, and then most importantly the approach. What a parent university is, it's generally a multi-day program. Each day can run between 1.5 hours to 3 hours, depending on if it's a Saturday afternoon or a Wednesday evening. You hold it in your school, and it's very experiential. The skills that the parents are learning, the parents are practicing. They're practicing in front of you. Some evenings, some Saturdays, the kids can come with them, whether they're middle school kids, whether they're 5-year-olds, or whether they're high school kids. And you demonstrate with their children, and then you watch the parents practice with their children. So it's very, very experiential, very, very hands-on. Our approach here at FEA, how we look at parenting and building the skills necessary to be successful academically and behaviorally in school, we take it from the approach of several different experts in the field. One of the people we look to is Myrna Shore, who's all about raising a thinking child. Another one is Dr. Ross Green out of Harvard and his collaborative approach to solving problems, because parenting is oftentimes solving problems. We definitely look at Carol Dweck's mindset, and then a book that myself and my partner Anthony Scannella wrote, A Passion for Compassion. And that's a way that you approach children so that the outcome for the parents is that we increase their understanding of both child development, ways to approach discipline, and ways to be supportive of the academic program, again, whether their child is in preschool or in high school getting ready to go off to college. So we really look at the whole child's life in our schools. Before we get into the how, what I want to look at just briefly is the research of why it's so important to incorporate parent involvement in your school. Now, and I know you have been well aware of this. The federal government's always telling us. But what we really need to look at as we try to keep our schools improving as quickly as the world is changing is that school-age children spend approximately 70% of their waking hours, not their sleeping hours, their waking hours outside of school. So we know that as a system, as an educational system, we are expected to do more and more and more and prepare these children for more complex careers, more complex world in which they live, but they are out of our care 70% more than they're in our care. So it's just become more crucial than ever that we find a way to get parents to extend what we're doing in school during the time that they're not with us. And then a few more slides that you'll see is the classic parental involvement that we've seen. And this is from 1997, that they said the lack of parental involvement is probably one of the biggest problems facing our public schools today. When you look at the flip side of that, when you get families involved, what can you expect to get for your investment? Some of the most heartening research that I saw is that socioeconomic status notwithstanding, when you get parents involved, that their children are twice as likely to be successful. And that success is defined by increased academic achievement, increased furthering on of education, increased attendance, decreased drug addiction, and decreased violence. Some studies that I've actually read show that when it's a really intensive parental involvement approach in the school, that number can go up to 10 times as successful, disregarding for socioeconomics and everything. So it's a very powerful. The quote you're looking at now from Rod Page when he was in charge of the education at the federal level, he's quoting there in 2002 on 3 decades work when children have caregivers involved in their school practice. And that doesn't necessarily mean coming into the school. That means they get the kids to school on time, that they're well fed, that they value the educational process at home, so they support it at home. When those things are in place, children do better and schools improve. Now looking at the why of Parent University from the national standards set by Joyce Epstein in parental involvement. And she and the PTA have outlined 6 of them. What we look at satisfying in our approach is 2 from our perspective that's important. And it's the first standard, parenting skills, are promoted and supported. And then the standard number 4 is student learning. How do we provide information to parents so that they can effectively support their children's academic career? All too often, the guidance a parent gets is make sure they have a quiet place and it's well lit. But that doesn't go nearly enough. You know, especially kids down at the elementary level need help acquiring some of those facts that need to be hardwired. And a parent has to know how to do that. So we actively, in our approach, work with our parents on learning just that. So now we'll get into the Parent University, the how of developing it and providing the skills. The approach that we take is first and foremost, and you'll see why this works so well, is we want parents to be able to empower their children to be safe. And we do that through several different approaches. And that is, first and foremost, parents, we help them acquire the confidence to know that you can't always tell your children what to do. It's more about, how do I teach my child how to think? So even at 2.5-year-old, a 3-year-old who's playing on the jungle gym and maybe is in a position and they're a little stuck, instead of the parent rushing over to help that child, as long as the child's safe, the parent instead asks the child, what's your plan? What are you going to do next? How are you going to get out of this? We teach our parents that at a very early age, they always teach their children to have an exit plan. Because I'm sitting there where you are, participating in this session, I could ask you, raise your hand if you have never made a stupid decision or a stupid mistake. And even though you're sitting there by yourself, there's a twitch in your arm ready to go up right now. Because we have all made bad decisions. And your children, whether you want to believe it or not, are going to make bad decisions. The difference between whether that bad decision is something that is going to impact them for the rest of their lives, or whether they can get out by the skin of their teeth, often relies on their ability to think their way through a problem. And if they have always been told what to do and how to do it, in essence, that parent is taking away that child's opportunity to develop the complex cognitive skills right here in prefrontal lobes that those children need to be successful in being able to think their way out of a problem. Whether it's they made a wrong decision about a person and now they're with a person that they shouldn't be, or they made a wrong decision about what kind of activities were going to be at this party, and they realize the activities that are there aren't something they want to be engaging in. So how do they get out of that, but still look cool. Because if you're a parent right now of a middle school child or above, 5th grade child or above, the most important thing in their life is that they look cool. So how can they think their way out of something and still remain cool? So that is having an exit plan. And I just thought I want to tell you a story. This was told to me by one of the parents with whom we've worked. This mom had a daughter who, this mom knew all her daughter's friends, all her daughter's friends' parents, just like you do. You make sure you know everybody your child hangs out with, you know them and their parents. And then, because we have school choice in lots of our neighborhoods, this child decided that she was going to go to a school that was probably about a half-an-hour train ride from where she lived. And so the mother was a little worried about that, but she knew that the trip was safe. But then, about the end of September of that first month in school, the daughter came home and said, "Mom, I've been invited to this party. I want to go to this party." Now, this mom didn't know the girl, didn't know the parents, but her daughter's out making new friends. So she says, "Okay, you can go, but I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to meet the girl, and I'm going to meet the parents, and I'm going to check out the party," just like you would. You do all that. Let me make sure that where I'm sending my children is safe. So this mother did that with her daughter, and she went in and she met the girl whose party it was being held in honor of. She met the mother, and the mother even had one of her friends there, so they had enough chaperones. So when this mother got home, 5 minutes after she got home, her daughter was on the phone saying, "Mom, can you come pick me up?" And the mom said, "Yeah, is everything okay?" And the daughter said, "Yeah, I just want to come." So the mom thinks, okay, she's bored. These aren't the kind of friends she thought she wanted to have, whatever. When the mom pulls up at the house, there's the police car, there's the ambulance. When her daughter had arrived at the party, right after the mom left, she had realized that the girl whose house it was had been drinking heavily. And in the time it took for her mother to go pick her back up, this girl had become poisoned with alcohol, and they had to call 911. So even though the parent did everything right, everything we know we're supposed to do, check up on the friends, check up on the party, go in and meet everybody, there's still so much room that bad things can happen to good kids. But luckily, this girl had practiced her exit plan since she was a little kid. The mom had said, "Oh, before you go anywhere, what's your plan to get out if something happens that you don't want to happen?" And you can only do that by raising children who can think. Yes, we want our kids to be obedient. Yes, we want them to do what we tell them to do. But most importantly, we want to raise kids who can think. So to get them there, a sample of skills that we use in our approach is it looks at parenting from a human relations, lens. It looks at parenting from what's a good way to get rules in place and a structure in place so the kids have room to think and behave. It comes from an approach of academic support. What can I teach my child in terms of how the brain works? Very simple, parents can do it. That allows my child to be more successful. We look at parenting from how do I as a parent teach my child how to control impulsivity. I know if you're in the education arena right now sitting and participating in this session, you can think of dozens of kids who get in trouble all the time in school because of how impulsive they are. Well, that training in a very systemic way can begin at home to help grow the dendrites here so that those kids can have more prefrontal activity so that they can be better decision makers. And we're actually going to do one of those activities here. It's more simple than you think. We also look at keeping kids on task and completing tasks in a way that's very organized. And most importantly, it's a very parent-friendly atmosphere. I have worked with some parents where I've had one of their 18-month-olds on my hip while we were working with the parents. So it's always got to be very inviting, very, very friendly for the parents. And what we do here at FEA is we have all our materials, the handout and the PowerPoint, done in both English and Spanish for our districts in which we go that there's a heavy Spanish-speaking population. And we also have a translator, so that while the presenter is speaking, there is another presenter right next to him or her that is presenting in Spanish. And that way everybody gets what they need in their own language. One of the skills that we teach parents in Parent University, it's just like some of the skills that we teach teachers when we're doing in service for teachers. And that is, what can you do with your children that allows them to build more neural activity right in the prefrontal lobes so that they can be better decision makers and control their impulsivity. Because here's what we know. Controlling impulsivity has everything to do with temporal orientation. Where am I in time? Where is it now? Where is the future? How concrete is the future for me, or how abstract is the future for me? The more an individual senses the future as abstract, they tend to be more impulsive. Because as you can see on the screen, when a person can't plan, when that future is so abstract, when they can't plan, they can't predict. When someone can't predict, they can't identify cause and effect. And if someone can't identify cause and effect, they can't identify consequences. Consequences are your rules. Whether you are a parent and they're your rules at home, or whether you are in a school system and it's your rules in your classroom or in your halls or in your lunchrooms. If I'm impulsive, as well you know, those consequences, I know them. I can recite the school rules to you or the home rules to you. But in that moment, I'm just not, the cause and effect isn't there. And I know if you're at the high school level, you're thinking of lots of students who, when you ask them to write about cause and effect, can't. This is all part of the same trouble bubble that kids get into, whether it's academic or behavior. We tend not to separate those out. Everyone has one brain in their head that is taking care of them, whether it's behaviorally or academically. So this, what we're looking at here in temporal orientation to control impulsivity, is looking at both academic and behavior. So when an individual can't identify consequence, that's when they can't control their impulsivity. And we know that on the worst end of that spectrum, when someone can't control their impulsivity, then they have the inclination towards criminal activity. This right here, I could argue, is the pipeline between school and the juvenile justice system, our detention centers for kids. And that's the bad news. The good news is the mediation for this, the way to get children, or if you know an 80-year-old like this, the easiest way to get them to start increasing their neural activity here is have them do planning activities, goal setting, step by step. When I get home, I have to do this. How much time should that take? I have to do this. How much time should that take? The remedy for this will allow your kids to get their homework done in a more efficient time frame. Because I hear the stories all the time. Oh, my kids, they come home, they sit at the table. 2 hours later, they're still at the table and they don't have their homework done. Well, it's not that they have that much homework to do. It's that they're not staying focused because this is lacking. They don't have the sense of time. So just one thing we're going to look at quickly here is goal setting. And that ties right into that standard 4 from our PTA, our Joyce Epstein standards of student learning. And one of the bullets under that is family participation in setting student goals. Now, you know your kid, or you know your niece or nephew, or you know your grandchild. So maybe you can't set a full marking period goal with that child because they just can't think that far ahead. So maybe you need to just set a week goal with that child. Or, you know, if they're really good at being able to think ahead, we call it temporal orientation, maybe you can do a semester, you know, a two marking period goal. You know as well as I that you have to meet people where they are to get them to where you want them to go. So you have to make this fit who your child is. But the scenario for this, making the grade little paper that you can print out, is for a marking period. So this is something a parent would sit down with the child and just, go over. Now you see there's a blank there because fill it in. Math class, art class, social studies class, language arts class. First thing you want your children to do is recognize what do they already do well? What are their strengths? Let's say that we're doing it for English, for language arts. So what do they already do well? And list that, A, B, C, D. Give me 4 things you do well in class. And it may be they bring their notebook to class. I mean, sometimes you have to dig for them. Then, number 2, what could I have done better? So you're not telling, please, mom, dad, grandma, don't tell your kid you need to study more, you need to go up. No. Elicit it from them. Remember, we're raising thinking kids. What can you do better? And they may not come up with 4. I always keep real high expectations. Maybe they'll come up with 2, 3 things. That's fine, as long as they identify 2 things that they're going to work on this marking period to get their grade up. And then I was or was not satisfied with my grade last marking period. That's more for you than them, because you've got to know, if they're thinking an F is okay, well then you've got some other things you have to deal with there in terms of how do I get my child to value school. Number 4, what grade do I realistically believe that I can get in this marking period? Now you just heard me say I like to keep everyone to high expectations. But we do need to be really realistic. If this is a child who has always struggled, let's say it's a communication handicapped child, and they've always really, really struggled with language arts, and they're in an in-class support class, or they're mainstream, then maybe an A, you can say, yeah, that would be great, but let's be realistic. Could you get that D- up to a B+ or a B-? Be realistic. What grade can they actually get? You and your child have that conversation. That's a dialogue. Again, you're not telling the child what you think. You're always listening from the child. Now comes the big part. Now here comes the commitment. What will I do in my language arts class to earn that grade? Now this is their plan. Because it's not, do you see that last word, when I achieve? Not when your teacher gives you that grade. There are so many kids who will say, well, why'd you get a bad grade? Teacher didn't like me. Teacher doesn't like me. She's got it in for me. He's got it in for me. They play the victim, or they put the blame outside of themselves. They don't take any ownership of control. So right in this simple 20-minute dialogue that a parent can have with a child, the focus is on that it comes from within, that goals are achieved, they're earned, they're not given. So that's one way of looking at establishing that mechanism for temporal orientation or controlling impulsivity. Now, interestingly, when you go out and you read research like I do, you find that in all the arguments that are going on in school around family planning, around sex education, there's arguments about, do we give out condoms, do we not give out condoms? Do we tell our kids to abstain, or do we not tell our kids to abstain? How do we do it? The number 1 prevention for teenage pregnancy, this is the Planned Parenthood and a women's group in Oregon did this research. They found out the number 1 prevention for teenage pregnancy is girls, not boys, they're off the hook again. Girls who can say, this is what I want to do, or this is what I want to be when I grow up, which is goal setting, which is having a goal and going towards it. Now, that's not gang-related girls. Gang-related girls that's something we talk about in Parent University. I'm not going to spend any time on here. But the gang-related girls are getting pregnant for a whole other reason. This is for non-gang-related girls. Number 1 prevention for teenage pregnancy is goal setting. And not, I'm not going to get pregnant. That's not the goal. It's, again, girls who know what they want to do or what they want to be when they grow up. One of the skills that we spend time on during the sessions of Parent University is what is language that you use in your household to help build resilient kids. Because language is like the water in which a fish swims. It's all around us, and we are unaware of it. And language is what supports the ability to be able to think, be able to grow, be able to even foster something like long-term change. Some things we get like if we punish our kids, we'll get short-term change. But if we want long-term change, that's usually done in a collaborative problem solving and using language. So I want to just go over a couple of the language kind of things that we do in Parent University. The first one is the one-word discipline approach. And this is for highly defiant kids. Now, and this is funny because this just happened last week. Some parents still think that hitting children is an appropriate way to get them to stay in line and be obedient and do what you want them to do. So I was in a parent setting. There were about 30 parents, and I brought this up that we're going to do a one-word discipline program, and the one dad had no problem saying, "I know what it is. It's a whooping." So I had to respectfully talk about power versus force. That yes, you can use force to discipline your children, and then they tend to use force on other people. That we want as parents to use our power to get our children to make better choices and do what's right. And through that, and power comes not from the ability to hit someone smaller than us. Power comes from our ability to use language to get people to do what we want them to do. So the one word that we use is regardless. And I'll just tell you a scenario, and this is Dr. Anthony Scanella's scenario, but he told me I could share it with you today. He is a former psychotherapist, and he had a mother come to him one time whose daughter was out of control. And she wanted Dr. Scanella's help. So he had her recount the scenario. And here's what happened. She has a daughter, let's say her daughter's name is Dawn. And Dawn wanted to go out with Dawn's friend Mary. And her mother said, "Mary? I don't think I know Mary." And Dawn said, "Oh yeah, you met Mary the other day at school." And her mother said, "Mary? You mean the one who had piercings all over her face? Her head was half shaved, the rest was purple. She was smoking cigarettes and saying F you?" "Yeah, Ma, that's Mary." Her mother said, "Oh, you're not going out with anyone like Mary." And her daughter says, "Well, what, don't you trust me?" And her mother said, "Well, yeah, I trust you, but I don't know if I can trust you. You're picking friends like Mary." "Well, what is this, the FBI?" "Well, are you telling me I need the FBI if you're going to hang out with people like Mary?" "Well, didn't you pick your friends when you were 13? "Well, yeah, I picked but nothing like Mary." Now, as this is going on, the mother is backing up to the door to stop her daughter from going, and the daughter just smacks her mother across the face to get out to the door. Now, that's out of control. That's really defiant. But I'll do another scenario, and then you'll tell me who was doing what in what scenario. So here's the same scenario with the one word. "Mom, I want to go out." "Who are you going out with?" "Mary." "Mary? You mean the same thing." Now, the mother was right. The mother gave her criteria. "No, I don't like you hanging out with people who smoke and curse. That's not who I think of as a good friend." But when the daughter starts, "Well, what is this, the FBI?" "Regardless, if this is the FBI, you are not going out with Mary." "Well, don't you trust me?" "Regardless, if I trust you, you are not going out with Mary." "Didn't you pick your friends when you were 13? "Regardless of what I did when I was 13, you are not going out with Mary." "Are you going to keep using that word regardless?" Nevertheless, you are not going out with Mary. So in the first episode, who was in control? And I know what you're saying right now. Wherever you're sitting, you're saying the daughter was. She took her mother for a ride. She went to all the hot buttons. Trust, FBI, what did you do when you were a kid? In the second scenario, who was in control? Mom was. She was just, every time her daughter Dawn would try to bring up something else, the mom would just put the wall there and just deflect. Put the wall, deflect. Put the wall, deflect. Pretty soon, those defiant kids run out of energy because they keep hitting their heads up against the same wall. You will see, this is something I know you'll use tonight. When you start using this, my kids, I have a 30-year-old and 4 kids, 30 down to 22, 1 grandchild who's 6. My 27-year-old son, when he was a teenager, God love you if you have kids under 16, that's when the aliens have their brain for a while. I used this with him all the time. And before he would even come and ask me a question, he would say, Mom, I have something I want to ask you, but are you going to use that word regardless? And I would say, nevertheless, we'll have to see what the question is. So they get really aware of what you're doing, but there's still no way around it. Still looking at language. What you're looking at here is what we call our values triangle. And we go into this in depth when we work with parents. But briefly, I can go over it briefly here so that you have another skill to take away with. You see, number 1 says behavior, 2 says connector, 3 up at the top of the triangle is a value or a belief. This is a triangle you can use to either build in the values and beliefs you want your children to hold, that you hold dear and you want them to share, or you can use what's important to them at the value and belief level to build in the behaviors you want. We know that our beliefs and our values are what drive our behaviors. We are who we are because of what we believe. The behaviors that you see each other exhibit are driven by what the belief is behind it that drives it. And Einstein told us you can't solve a problem at the same level that it occurs. So when our children, whether in school or at home, are misbehaving, we tend to go work at that at the behavioral level, where that takes a long time and it doesn't guarantee lasting change. If we listen to Einstein and we go and we work up here at the belief and value level, that's what will get the behavior to change. So how do we do this conversationally? How do we do this with our language? Well, you catch your children when they're doing something right. You do this anyway. Oh, I like the way you held the door for your sister today. I like the way you shared your toys when your friend came over. I like the way you sat down and did your homework tonight. We're smart enough to know that when we recognize somebody's doing well and we tell them about it, we get more of that. That's called behavior shaping. But what we're missing by just limiting our language to commenting on behavior is we're missing connecting that to the higher belief or value, because that's where real change takes place. So, oh, Rob, I see that you held the door open for Gina today. That lets me know you're polite. That lets me know you're kind. That lets me know you're caring. Whatever the belief or value is that you want to build in, you catch the behavior and you make the connection. Again, some of our kids don't get cause and effect. We tell them we want them to be hardworking, respectful, kind. When we catch them doing that and we connect what we mean by respect to a concrete behavior, that's what starts making those connections in the brain. Now, conversely, the other way of using that is what's important to them and how do you connect it to the behavior. Sometimes this takes stretching what we know is truth, but I think as parents, as long as we're not harming anyone, it's okay to stretch sometimes. For instance, my daughter, my youngest, 22, she's not anymore, but when she was in middle school, she was a supreme slob, the diva of slobs, and messy. So what I would do is when I would have to go fishing sometimes in her room, and I would go in and I'd say, oh, Cassie, your cleats are in the closet. That lets me know you're on your way to being mature. Oh, Cassie, I see you're finally growing up. So I would catch something in a room that was neat, and I would connect it to being mature. Now, is that true? No, I bet you there's some of you sitting out there right now whose shoes aren't in the closet. However, being mature, being grown up, is one of the highest values a middle school kid has. They want the world to notice that they have grown up. So I connected what I wanted her to do with what she wanted and mapped it in that way. So that's the way you can use conversational language to build in the beliefs and values you want, or use their beliefs and values to build in the behavior you want. The last piece of language I want to mention is Carol Dweck's work around mindset. If you don't have this book yet, I would suggest it's a great one to add to your library. Carol Dweck looks at the impact of language on the development of two different mindsets, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset person usually knows they're smart because they're talented. They've got a good IQ. They have the basketball gene. They've got the math gene. That they're good at what they do because they're talented. And when someone has a fixed mindset based on my talent, that person tends to take less risks academically, give up easier because they're thinking, oh, everyone knows that I'm talented. I can't risk them seeing that I'm not talented. So they will not take risks. Someone, on the other hand, who has a growth mindset hasn't heard from their moms, dads, educational personnel that, oh, you're so gifted. Oh my gosh, you were just born with the writing gene. What they have heard is, wow, you did that really well. That must mean you worked really hard to do that. That means you didn't give up. They turn in a well-written essay. Oh my gosh, you must have written, rewritten, written, rewritten, written, rewritten 3 times. Because you don't just, writing well isn't, let me sit down and write a 3-page essay. It's rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. So the language tends to focus on the process, not the product. So growth fixed mindset, when Carol Dweck out of Stanford did all her experiments, what she did is she brought in 8-year-olds. And the one group were told they're so smart because they have a great IQ. We just tested you, your IQ, and all about their talent. And the other group was raised with growth language. Oh, you work so hard, you work so hard. So they were given a series of puzzles that got progressively harder. After the fixed mindset group started making mistakes, they didn't want to do them anymore. The growth mindset group, as the puzzles got harder, it was in their language. Oh, good, we love hard puzzles. This is harder than the last one. So they got to take a score of everything they did. And then they were told, the children were told, another group's coming in after you. You can leave them a little note about what this process was like. And if you would like, you can report your score. The kids in the fixed mindset group all inflated their score that they reported to. Now, this is at 8 years old. Carol Dweck has stories from Enron, from the sports arena, about the difference in a business person, a school child, an athlete, between fixed and growth mindset. Why we bring this up in Parent University is that, again, language is all around us. And trust me, out of the couple little skills that we've shared with you today, this is the hardest. Put that ear on the outside of yourself and listen to you, how many times you praise your kids for their talent, not the work they did to get there. And you'll work hard, but you'll change it so that you raise kids who have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. So what can you do at the school and district leadership level? What do we know? Schools who reap the benefits of a lot of parents who know specifically how to help their kids at home, how to get their kids into classrooms so that they can hopefully be more successful, is they help get parents the specific information that they need on how to help their kids and what to do to help them. And this is so much more than sending home a newsletter or putting a post on a website. It takes in your strategic plan. You know, I don't know when you're watching this session, but my guess is you will be somewhere in the midst of making your strategic plan. And so often we say, oh yeah, we want to involve our parents, we want to increase our parent involvement, but what concretely and specifically are you doing to move that envelope further so that you can reap the benefit of that 70% of time that the kids aren't with you, so that you can make further progress. The obstacles that districts find when they move towards a model of bringing parents in is often the teachers think that parents who come, single parents or low-income parents, don't spend as much time. They don't want to help their kids. That's an urban myth that's out there that's easy to fall into. What we know is for someone to do anything, whatever it is you want to do, learn how to ski, learn how to golf better, take a course at the local college, you have to want to, you have to know how to, and you have to have a chance to. Oftentimes, we blame urban parents that they don't want to help their kids when really it's they just don't know how. Telling them to supply a quiet place in a house that has a lot of people that live in there just isn't always realistic. So once we specifically tell parents, this is how you make sure you have a relationship with your kid, because without that, they're not going to be able to help their kids. This is how you have a relationship. This is some language. Here's a concrete skill, how you teach a visual learning strategy. That's when those parents rise up and help their kids as much as any middle-class parent ever would. So just do me a favor right now. Take a minute, paper and pencil. I know you're probably at a desk somewhere and you have paper and pencil close by. And I just want you on a piece of paper, 4 big ideas that you remember. I know I've been talking a long time, but think back to the beginning, 4 ideas you remember, because there's at least, I've sprinkled at least 4 in there. And then 3 connections that you've made either to your parenting, if you're watching as a parent and an educator, or 3 connections that you've made to kids who go to your school or parents who come to your school. And then write down on that paper 1 thing that you will do differently as, you know, as a result of spending your time here with me today. Okay, so as you finish writing, I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for caring about your kids enough to spend this time, and have a pleasant day. If you are interested in more information on how you could create your own parent university for your district, or bring FEA's parent university into your school or district, please contact Jay Dooley.